On the day of her birthday, Commander Emma's beloved military dog Max shattered the celebration, but the reason why would haunt her forever. Emma was a decorated officer known for her sharp instincts, unwavering discipline, and the deep trust she placed in those who served by her side. Today, however, was meant to be a celebration of her life, a rare moment of personal joy in a world usually defined by duty and sacrifice. In the secure compound behind her headquarters, close friends, trusted colleagues, and family members had gathered to honor her birthday. The compound's backyard was transformed into a festive space. Colorful balloons swayed in the gentle breeze, cheerful streamers hung from every doorway, and a long table was set with neatly wrapped presents, along with a beautifully iced vanilla cake. Max, her loyal and highly trained military dog, had served by her side for over a decade. More than a pet, he was a partner in every mission, a soldier in his own right with instincts as sharp as any human's. Today, though, Max was acting strangely. Even before the party began, his behavior had been off. Instead of greeting the guests with his usual wagging tail and calm presence, he paced near the back gate. His deep brown eyes, though dulled slightly by age, burned with an intensity that Emma had never seen before. Every time she moved to greet a guest or cut a slice of cake, Max would pull at his leash and dart his gaze toward the compound's entrance, as if he sensed a danger hidden from everyone else. At first, Emma dismissed his odd behavior as nothing more than fatigue. "You're just a little off today, boy," she murmured, patting his head in an affectionate but distracted manner. But as the hours passed, Max's restlessness grew. His low whines began to puncture the light-hearted chatter of the party. When a guest approached with a compliment, his gaze would wander toward the gate. When laughter filled the air, he seemed to grow more agitated. It was as if he was trying to say something urgent. The turning point came during the cake-cutting ceremony. The room was awash in soft, warm light from carefully strung fairy lights, and all the guests had gathered around Emma with smiles and hopeful eyes. With a deep breath, she prepared to make her birthday wish as she raised the cake before the candles. In that precise moment, just as the flames flickered in anticipation, Max sprang into action. With a burst of energy that belied his years, he lunged forward and clamped his teeth onto the hem of her uniform. A collective gasp rose from the guests as the joyful ambiance was shattered in an instant. "Max, what are you doing?" Emma shouted, torn between shock and anger. She tugged at him, trying to free herself from his grip, but the loyal dog would not release. His eyes were fixed on something in the distance, a silent plea hidden in his expression. "Stop this foolishness! You're ruining my birthday!" she scolded harshly, frustration rising in her voice. To her, it seemed like he was just being disobedient on a day when she should have been celebrated. Her parents and a few senior officers rushed forward, trying to pull Max away, yet despite their efforts, he continued his determined struggle. Then, in a single, decisive moment, Max broke free. Without a backward glance, he trotted straight toward the back gate. Over his shoulder, his eyes seemed to say, "Follow me if you want to know the truth." Caught in the whirlwind of her emotions, anger, embarrassment, and a growing sense of unease, Emma barked after him, "Come back here, you stupid dog." For several minutes, confusion reigned. The guests whispered among themselves as Emma's outburst faded into a heavy silence. Max was gone. The lively celebration had come to an abrupt halt as everyone exchanged uncertain glances. Emma tried to dismiss the incident as a moment of disobedience, yet deep inside a nagging feeling told her that something far more serious was unfolding. Within the next hour, the party resumed in a subdued fashion. Emma attempted to return to her duties as host, greeting guests and making light conversation. However, every time she glanced toward the back gate, a knot tightened in her stomach. Max's earlier behavior haunted her thoughts, but she pushed aside the worry until, in the midst of the party, she discovered something that would shatter her world. A security check was announced as part of the compound's routine protocol. Everyone was asked to submit to a quick search before mingling further. As the security team prepared to inspect the guests' belongings, Emma suddenly realized with a sinking dread that Max was nowhere to be seen. The dog who had been so insistent earlier had vanished without a trace. Panic and disbelief surged through her as she excused herself from the subdued gathering and hurried outside. "Max, come on, boy," she called, her voice cracking with urgency. She retraced her steps along the dimly lit pathway leading away from the party. The cool night air did nothing to ease her rising fear. After a few agonizing minutes of searching, Emma finally found him, lying motionless in a shadowed corner beneath a cluster of bushes near the gate. Her heart pounded painfully as she knelt beside him. There, in the dim light, Max's lifeless body lay still. As Emma reached out, her fingers trembled as they brushed against his warm fur one last time. Clutched in his mouth was a small piece of cloth, a scrap that did not belong to him. It was embroidered with a pattern she recognized immediately, the same insignia found on the inner lining of the coat worn by one particular guest. Tears sprang to her eyes as the realization dawned. This was not a random act of violence, it was deliberate. "Max," she whispered, the single word laden with grief and regret. In that heartbreaking moment, she understood that her loyal friend had sensed a danger that she had refused to see. Max had been shot with a silent pistol, its cold, muffled report hidden from everyone's ears, so that he could not speak out. Instead, in his final act of devotion, he had clutched that piece of cloth as a clue. The loyal dog had done all he could to warn her, but she had dismissed his strange behavior as mere disobedience. Stunned and grief-stricken, Emma gathered Max's body into her arms. The party indoors had fallen into a hushed, anxious silence as word of the incident spread. With tears streaming down her face, Emma forced herself to return inside. In the gathering gloom of the main hall, she stood before the assembled guests, her voice trembling but resolute. "Please, listen to me," she said softly, glancing at the cloth in her hand. "The cloth. It belongs to someone here. I need everyone to remain calm." A murmur ran through the room as curious eyes turned to her. Emma's mind raced. Who among these trusted guests could be linked to such a sinister act? She had only one suspect, the chief guest, a man of high standing who had been honored and welcomed with great respect earlier in the day. His uniform had hidden a detail. An embroidered insignia identical to that on the scrap of cloth clutched in Max's mouth. Determined to uncover the truth, Emma discreetly gathered a small group of trusted officers. In hushed tones, she explained what had happened and showed them the evidence. They agreed to help her investigate, keeping the matter as secret as possible. Emma's heart ached with betrayal. The man she had considered a friend, an honored guest at her celebration, was now a suspect in the death of her most loyal companion. Time was short. The compound security team was resuming their checks, and Emma knew that every second counted. With quiet urgency, she approached the head of security. "I need you to recheck all the guests' coats and personal belongings, especially the chief guests. There's something wrong here, something I can't ignore." The security team, accustomed to the strict protocols of the compound, moved quickly. Emma watched with a mix of dread and determination as they methodically inspected each guest. The atmosphere grew tense, the earlier festive air replaced by a sense of impending doom. Finally, one of the security officers approached the chief guest, a man whose calm demeanor had suddenly become wary. With practiced precision, the officer patted down the coat. A frown creased his face as he discovered a small, hidden object in the inner pocket. The officer called out, "Sir, please step aside for further inspection." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to the chief guest, whose face now betrayed a flash of panic beneath his mask of feigned innocence. The officer produced the object, a bomb, crudely assembled and hidden within the lining of the coat pocket. Gasps erupted among the guests. In that dreadful moment, the truth became undeniable. Someone had planted this bomb with the intention of causing chaos, and the evidence pointed squarely at the traitor among them. Emma's heart shattered. Rage, sorrow, and regret surged through her as she realized that Max had been trying to save her all along. The loyal dog had sensed the deadly threat, even as his master scolded him for misbehavior. Now, as the bomb was uncovered, Emma understood that the very warning she had dismissed was the one that might have saved lives, including Max's. The chief guest, the traitor, had nearly succeeded in his plan. The traitor had not only endangered the compound, but had silenced the one creature whose loyalty was never in question. In the ensuing chaos, the security team quickly evacuated the compound. Sirens wailed outside as bomb disposal units rushed to the scene. Amid the confusion, Emma stood apart from the crowd, cradling Max's collar in her hands. She could hardly believe the sequence of events that had unfolded over just 3 to 4 short hours, a single day that had begun with celebration and ended in heartbreak and betrayal. Standing alone in the chill of the early night, Emma sank to her knees beside a quiet memorial set up for the day's tragic events. With trembling fingers, she removed the scrap of cloth from Max's lifeless mouth and held it up to the light. It was a small token, yet it carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. In that moment, Emma vowed that she would never again ignore the silent warnings of those who stand by us unconditionally. As the night wore on, the compound slowly calmed. The traitor was taken into custody, and the bomb was safely disarmed by an expert team. But for Emma, nothing could bring back her loyal friend. In the cold light of dawn, as the first rays of the sun began to dispel the darkness, she remained in the debriefing room, haunted by memories of Max's unwavering loyalty. In the quiet hours before sunrise, Emma replayed every moment in her mind, the playful glances of a devoted companion on previous missions, the times when Max had sensed danger long before anyone else, and the final, desperate look in his eyes that she had so foolishly dismissed. Regret filled her heart. She realized too late that his behavior was not that of a disobedient pet, but of a soldier trying to warn her of imminent peril. Unable to shake the memory of that day, Emma gathered the courage to step outside one last time before the new day began. Beneath a solitary security lamp, she knelt beside a small memorial she had fashioned in honor of Max, a simple display of his collar, a faded photo of the two of them from happier times, and a few wildflowers she had collected during her investigation. With quiet, broken whispers, she spoke to him. "Max, I'm so sorry," she said, voice choked with emotion. "I should have listened. You were always the one who knew. Your loyalty was never in doubt. I was too proud, too blinded by my own frustrations to see that your actions were meant to protect me from danger, from betrayal, from a fate I now understand all too well." Her words echoed softly in the stillness of the early morning. In that heart-wrenching moment, Emma realized that true loyalty was not measured by words or grand declarations, but by silent acts of devotion and sacrifice. Max had given his life to deliver a message, a final mission completed with the courage of a true soldier. His sacrifice had exposed the traitor among them, a betrayal so deep that it would haunt her for the rest of her days. With the new day dawning around her, Emma made a solemn promise. She would honor Max's memory by never again ignoring the quiet warnings of those who love us, no matter how small or unassuming they might seem. The lesson was painfully clear: loyalty and trust come at a cost, and sometimes the price of overlooking them is far too high. In the weeks and months that followed, Commander Emma shared Max's story with her team. In debriefings and quiet moments, she recounted how even in his final moments, Max had remained the vigilant guardian he had always been. His final act of bravery, the scrap of cloth, the silent sacrifice, became a symbol of the values she held dear: loyalty, trust, and the unwavering commitment to protect those we hold close. Every birthday thereafter, when the compound would gather for a celebration, Emma would pause before blowing out her candles. In that brief silence, she remembered Max's determined eyes, his steadfast loyalty, and the heartbreak of that fateful night. Though the memory of betrayal and loss would always be a part of her, it also served as a constant reminder that true devotion is forged in the fires of sacrifice. On one particularly quiet morning, as Emma walked through the compound's courtyard, she paused before a memorial plaque dedicated to fallen comrades. She ran her fingers over the engraved words and then gently placed Max's collar beside it. In that symbolic act, she saluted her fallen friend, a soldier who had given everything to protect her and expose the hidden enemy. Her heart ached with regret, yet also swelled with gratitude for the lessons he had taught her. Max's final mission was not in vain. His actions, however misunderstood in the moment, had saved countless lives by revealing the traitor among them. The chief guest, once regarded as an esteemed ally, had been unmasked as the orchestrator of a diabolical plot, a plot that might have led to devastation if not for the silent warning delivered by one loyal dog. As the compound slowly returned to normalcy and security measures were tightened, in the wake of the betrayal, Commander Emma carried the weight of that tragic night with her every day. But with that weight came a new resolve: to listen more intently to the silent voices of those who stand by us, and to honor the memory of a brave companion who had taught her that the most profound lessons are often delivered in silence. And so, even as the sun rose over the secure compound each morning, casting golden light on a new day, Emma's heart remained forever changed. In every decision she made, in every command she issued, the spirit of Max, loyal, vigilant, and selfless, lived on. The painful price of overlooking his instincts had left a scar, but it was also the spark that ignited a deeper understanding of what it truly means to trust, to protect, and to love without reservation. In the end, as Commander Emma looked back on that day, a day of celebration turned to heartbreak, she knew that the legacy of Max's devotion would guide her for the rest of her life. His silent sacrifice was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, loyalty shines through, and that sometimes the smallest, quietest souls carry the greatest light.